So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yuichi Osoi. I'm a professor of international politics at Keio University, Tokyo. Today, we are very fortunate to have Her Excellency Ms. Taarnia Fァヨン, Foreign Minister of Slovenia, Republic of Slovenia. Today, Foreign Minister Fァヨンwill talk about human peace and security agenda, contribution to international peace, security and stability. Now, Republic of Slovenia is a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. She has been playing a very important role in discussing on various important international issues such as war in Ukraine and also war in the Middle East. We have so many problems and the future is so uncertain. So today, we like to discuss on these issues. And also, we like to exchange views with students at Keio University. In the beginning, I'd like to ask for Minister Fァヨンto speak around 20 minutes or so. And then we like to ask the students, participants, to raise questions or comments. So, Minister Fァヨン, could you speak your speech, please?
Yes. Thank you. Is that working?
I think
maybe I should put it, yeah. Now it's better, huh? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and being here today with you. It's quite a great pleasure and a big privilege. I just arrived this morning to Tokyo. It's actually the first official visit of any Slovenian foreign minister after quite some years. So I'm especially honored to have this opportunity because later in the day I will meet my counterpart, the foreign minister, Ms. Kamikawa. We managed to meet each other already during our Security Council session in New York recently and establish very good relation. First, allow me just to, I have a very long speech, but I prefer to speak out of my heart, and maybe I won't be 20 minutes, but therefore there will be a chance for more questions. Just few words about me. I used to be a journalist and a foreign correspondent some 20 years ago. I was living in Belgium for 20 years, and I was covering events, political, other events in France, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg for 8 years. I was a correspondent also for the institutions, European Union and NATO at that time, when Slovenia was last 4 years negotiating before becoming a member of EU and NATO, and just this year we are celebrating the 20th anniversary to NATO and EU. So quite some time has passed, but I can tell you 20 years ago, when I was in Brussels, pretty young, many people didn't know exactly where Slovenia lies, or they changed or mixed Slovenia with Slovakia. So we had also this taboo, Slovenia coming from former Yugoslavia, being part of Yugoslavia. There were bloody wars ago, 30 years ago. Our Yugoslavia, our common country, was falling apart with war after war, started in Slovenia and then Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina and so on. Maybe a question, has anyone been in Slovenia? Okay, some hands. Slovenia is changing quite rapidly. I have to say that looking this history of last 20 years, we did a significant breakthrough development. We opened up, we have a fantastic, beautiful nature. It's a very small country, but I would say ambitious, and we are pretty proud on what we are having with a clean air, clean environment, forests and water that is very close to the heart of our people. But maybe just a brief introduction of some famous Slovenians that you might know. Let me start with sports. Slovenia made its presence for during 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympic in Paralympic Games, and while hosting Slovenian athletes, strong ties between Slovenia and Fukui province were built that resulted also in opening of our honorary consulate of Slovenia in Fukui. That was in 2023. There was World Basketball Championship co-hosted by Japan and brought our basketball team back to Japan. And despite our modest population of just 2 million, Slovenia has produced exceptional individuals, and most likely you've heard for Luka Doncic, the star of Dallas Mavericks, serving as a shining example of our sport diplomacy and the values that athletes and responsible nations represent. So Japanese and Slovenian ski jumpers, both men and women, have traditionally been at the forefront of ski jumping world competitions, including the Slovenia Planica Nordic Center that you might well know. And let me say that many Slovenians, including me, have been long-standing admirers of Noriaki Kasai style and achievements of other Japanese ski jumpers. We have also quite some exceptional women, and not only in sport. By the way, I was the first female foreign minister in my country and also the deputy prime minister, but we also have the first Slovenian female president of my country and the first Slovenian speaker of national parliament. All that happened in the last few years, so some change of trends. Let's see how long will last, but we are there. And almost 100 years ago, a polyglot, amateur, ethnologist, biologist, writer Alma Karlin made a lone round-the-globe trip, also visiting Japan. And it is remarkable with Alma Karlin, a woman ahead of her time and an intriguing character, wrote of Japan, that is what is the only country where she did not feel out of place. And just today I have to say we had a reception before with Japanese Slovenian business community, and some business people told me exactly the same. When I'm in Slovenia, I feel like it's something that reminds me of my country. We share certain values, we feel like at home, and Alma Karlin already wrote that many years ago. So Slovenia this year celebrates our 33rd anniversary of independence after the wars in former Yugoslavia, as I mentioned. So today we are a member of European Union, NATO, OECD, OSCE, Council of Europe, and United Nations. And now I will go more on a political side, and we'll start by the latest. Slovenia is currently a non-permanent member of Security Council of United Nations since the 1st of January this year. That was for our small diplomacy quite a huge privilege and a challenge when we took over the task, and we entered Security Council in a very challenging times, in a very difficult geopolitical atmosphere where you can see that also the world is in a way very deeply polarized. From the day one and also from October last year when we were observers, we are dealing from crisis to crisis. Currently we have 55 armed conflicts around the globe. Just on a European continent, we have the 3rd year Russian war in Ukraine. It's really going on. It's devastating for Ukraine, with a lot of civilian victims, with a lot of destroyed infrastructure, and recently also what we were very worried, quite a strong heat of nuclear power plant. That is not very far from our homes. So we are following and helping and supporting Ukraine as much as we can, and we want to see also peace as soon as we can. And now I come back to Security Council, where we have among 5 permanent member states one country, that is Russia, violating the UN Charter and the international law. And we are quite often hijacked in the Security Council how to accept the decisions. And currently we are dealing with a terrible situation in the Middle East. with a war in Gaza, with thousands, 10,000s of dead civilians and children, starvation, famine, displaced people, and the war is ongoing, so we see clear violations of international humanitarian law. Slovenia was from the very beginning calling international community for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, to allow the protection of civilians, women, children, humanitarian workers, journalists, etc., to provide additional humanitarian support, to release hostages, to make sure that we are seriously engaged in a two-state solution, how to make life safe on one hand for Israelis, on the other hand for Palestinians, living side by side. We see that we have new escalations of and new tensions of a conflict in the Middle East just throughout the weekend, with return measures from Iran to Israel. And just last night we had a Security Council session on the topic that we condemned, we expressed serious concern, and we call all sides to be truly restrained in this conflict, not to further escalate the situation in the Middle East. So we are challenged on many fronts, and I just mentioned a few of them. The fact that I'm coming from Slovenia and that we had 30 years ago wars. Today, the Western Balkan countries are also in a challenging economic and political situation, with a lot of turbulences, where you can see, in the absence of a clear vision going to be part of European Union, young generation, young people are really leaving their countries, especially Bosnia and Herzegovina and others, in this belief that they will have a better, prosperous future. So Slovenia also tries to support, especially our neighbors, so countries of the Western Balkans, to carry out reforms, because we believe that the geopolitical necessity calls for a stronger, united and enlarged European Union in years to come. So we work hard to make our continent self-sustainable, strong enough, together with the Western Balkans and together with our Eastern neighbor partners. When we speak about Ukraine, Moldova or Georgia, countries that are also now having certain security risks because of the war in Ukraine. Despite all of this gloomy picture that we see, with a lot of uncertainties around us and challenging, we have to say that, at least in our country, we try to build our strong and resilient economy, to be and resilient also in a sense that we are self-sufficient when it comes to energy supplies, renewables. We have a lot of wind, sun, water, just to be as sustainable as we can. We were not so ambitious in the past, but now we are forced to be. We want to make sure that our values that the European Union is based on, democracy, solidarity, the rule of law, are respected, and that we protect our citizens and also our borders. One of the biggest achievements in European Union was to travel among the countries without borders. That was something people most felt. That was the most tangible thing of bringing Europe together, including with a single currency, including with programs for students to study around, to travel to other countries, to get new experiences, to find even job opportunities, to find health opportunities. So that is all Europe about, where I would still say today it is one of the most beautiful projects that even got a Nobel Peace Prize for peace and stability, the Europe as a continent that is based on solidarity, democracy and the rule of law. But now we see that we are losing, if you look to the geostrategy in the world, that everything is shifting more to the Indo-Pacific, that Europe is in a way lagging behind, be it in economic terms or in terms of development. We have to do more. So for me, I have to say I had a privilege last 2 years because of Security Council and because of the role of Slovenia. I managed to travel throughout the globe and try to reach out to all partners, to Global South, to African continent, to Asia, to everywhere, because I think these alliances of like-minded, like to Japan, is so important that we build them today, that we can protect stability and peace. And Japan and Slovenia are really like-minded countries. We work very well together. We have traditionally long history, and we have still a lot of opportunities to build on. And this will be also the purpose of my meeting today with the minister, to discuss bilateral economic relations, political challenges that we face, and with some of our business companies also to see on opportunities where we can exchange best know-how and continue working together. So maybe this for my opening remarks. I had some topics written. Maybe I should at least mention women, peace and security agenda, I as a first foreign women minister was also developing one of aspects of my ministry on a feminist foreign policy. Why am I saying that? It's in the context of women, peace and security agenda. Today we see in the world a lot of tragedies hits mostly girls and women. They are first victims of war, of poverty, of economic instability. And we established the ministers, lady ministers, a network, the digital platform network, where we are working together to express our solidarity with women and girls when it's necessary. And our voice can be very loud and is heard. Latest was in Afghanistan and Iran, where we really warned together loud about the deterioration of women and girls' rights. So one of the topic what you can do as a minister, it always gives you a lot of opportunities, but currently it's just going from crisis to crisis and try to see how to make diplomacy work, how to make diplomacy speak and not the weapons. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Thank you very much indeed, for Minister, for your brilliant speech. And Keio University has many talented female students. And I know that your country, our country, we both have a talented female foreign minister. And more, I think that this topic, women, peace and the security agenda, this becomes more important than before in many ways. We are facing many crises as well as conflicts. And many female are victimized in these conflicts. So I think that many Japanese students, particularly female students, would be interested in how those victimized women can be rescued, as well as how female women can participate in solving difficult conflicts in many regions of the world. So in the beginning, but I'd like to ask Professor Hideki Hayashi, who is teaching Japan Europe Economic Relations at Keio University. He's expert on European Union studies as well as EU-Japan economic relations. And more EU and Japan share important economic interests. Last year, European Union issued its first European Union economic security strategy. And more, I think that on various issues, EU and Japan are collaborating in trying to increase their economic interests. So First, may I ask Professor Hayashi for comments or questions?
Thank you very much for the lecture. And actually, yes, thank you, Professor Soya. And last year, I could participate studies conference in Bled, thanks to the collaboration. And I had a very good, impressive idea from your keynote speech that the solidarity was the key issue. And I thought after the disastrous flood and the global geographical uncertainty, I felt that the solidarity is based on the diversity. So that was my idea, which means solidarity is realized when everyone understands different standpoint of each other or the other. Then also next day, as was introduced, my point of view is from the economic point of view, and also it was impressive for me that you were discussing with all the top leaders of the West Balkan countries, in spite of the so much difference of this stage of the economic development, and which you, yes, that's also you have touched upon. And my idea, my question is why is there any idea which when you discuss in the EU or in the former Western Balkan countries, how you can reach the coordination when everyone has country has a different standpoint of view on the how make use of that idea on the global basis, so find common interest or develop the commons, especially when, as you touched upon today, the energy policy in coordination with the climate change. So I mean the so renewable energy and the atomic energy. How I think every EU member countries has the right of the energy mix, and but still, I think EU seems to coordinate policies. That can be my answer. Sorry. Yes,
Okay.
I'd like to get the answer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I noted down 3 different aspects, but Bled Strategic Forum that you mentioned, and I hope I can encourage someone else to come for this edition in August, is traditionally every year. It's a fantastic platform of international networking of politicians, academia, think tanks, foreign guests. Last year we covered all the continents. So it grew up the size of our organization, but it's a really very nice spot to brainstorm where we stand, where do we want to go. You mentioned solidarity, and I want to say, because solidarity was really a red line of our last year's edition, why? We just experienced worst floods ever in the history of our country. And these worst floods, we learned at least 2 lessons. One was that without solidarity, we wouldn't give hope people and we wouldn't make it. Because from the very first day, people had hope, as so many neighboring countries, up to the Western Balkans, other countries of European Union, really started sending us support, and including our citizens. So solidarity was a red line of when it comes to when people are in need, what does it mean? And that is also one of our European values, because we have a solidarity mechanism from where we also could receive funds to support our families, households, vulnerable companies. Western Balkan equally needs this solidarity today. When I said, yes, there are differences in the development between the countries. Croatia is now also the member of the EU. reach certain standards, certain reforms. Doesn't mean that we are in economy doing well. I can say Slovenia is mostly export-oriented country, which means that our big markets like German market, it's for us extremely important. And if German market goes bad, I like to say if they cough, we have a flu. So for us, Western Balkans means peace and stability. We need to support them. There is still a reconciliation ongoing between the countries that were in war in the past. And this is a long and very painful process. Just these days, for example, we have a discussion in Security Council at 30th anniversary of genocide, whether to proclaim Srebrenica a World Day of Genocide. And I can tell you it's opening a lot of wounds and a lot of heated discussions in the region, especially from the Serbian side. But I'm saying to make this reconciliation work, to make reforms, I really believe we have to push towards the European Union, the countries, because they are part of Europe, they've always been and they will be. And there are differences in economy, certainly in the development, and also in building the reforms. And it's always based process on its merits. So the country that will progress faster will faster join the EU. But still in our idea is that we get them as soon as possible part of our common market, part of our Schengen market, part of Euro currency. I honestly believe that 2030 can be a very important date. Charles Michel, the head of EU Council, announced recently, why not prepare European Union by 2030 to be ready to enlarge further, internally prepare. Because we are currently discussing about the whole Western Balkan Club for 20 years, and now Ukraine, Georgia and Moldova, all these countries to become part of EU, which is maybe unrealistic to imagine now. But by 2030, if we are prepared on our side, those countries that are prepared on the other side, we should grab them in. And I believe that we need stronger, enlarged EU as soon as possible. It's a geostrategic necessity because of what all is going on around us. And you mentioned still nuclear energy and the mix, and of course after the Russian war in Ukraine, Slovenia was traditionally strongly connected and dependent from Russia with gas and oil. So we had to find divergency in our supply. So we managed to establish a contract with Algeria for land gas for certain years. We do a lot more on renewables. We are currently a discussion to build additional nuclear power plant. We do have one together with Croatia. There is a new generation now and also a new alliance in Europe about the new technologies and the new nuclear energy. So it is not an easy discussion, but we have a consensus in the society, so we will continue that path. So in Europe we are trying to be as much as possible self-sustainable in that regard and also resilient in the future.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Last year, you at the Blake Strategic Forum made a very impressive speech entitled "Solidarity is a Prerequisite for Peace and Security." And I think that many Japanese people can fully understand it because in Asia we need it. And the Japanese foreign policy named Free and Open Indo-Pacific is focusing on the importance of inclusiveness. We need to create inclusiveness in the region in Asia or the Indo-Pacific. And likewise, I think that the Republic of Slovenia has been trying to bring solidarity at the heart of Europe. Mm-hmm. By doing it, I think that we can solve some of the most difficult conflicts in the world. And also, it is also quite noteworthy that in Western Balkans, you experienced a war 3 decades ago, 2 decades ago, but countries have overcome difficult confrontation and conflicts in the region. Nowadays, many countries in the region are collaborating together to try to be more prosperous, to try to be more stable. And it's really impressive that those countries are now in a very close solidarity within the European Union, within the framework of the NATO. So I think we can spread that stability and the solidarity in other regions of the world to try to solve some very difficult conflicts.
I can just give recent example. It was 2 weeks ago when I was sitting at a table of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels. We were celebrating not only 75th anniversary of the alliance. Something must have been right, or at least we are doing something right if this alliance survived 75 years and even enlarged. Because I said it's based on values, our shared values. These values are solidarity, democracy, and the rule of law. And Slovenia celebrated 20 years. But what I wanted to say is that one part of the session was together with our partners in Indo-Pacific. So they joined us at the table, ministers from Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, and we discussed the topics of our common interests and also challenges. And we are on the other side of the world, but so many things connect us. We had a very good discussion, and it shared our joint idea that we are stronger if we stay united. I think this was the main message.
Well, thank you very much indeed for Minister. I suppose that there must be questions coming from the students. So if you have questions, please raise your hand and please identify yourself. And you can push the button to speak up, and there is a microphone in front of you. So please use that microphone to raise a question. So is there anyone who likes to ask a question or to give a comment? So I welcome them. Anybody who has a question? Oh yes, please. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister, for your speech. It was very interesting. You mentioned like small countries are often hijacked in the Council because of some of the aggressors in the world. They happen to be the permanent members of the UN. And Japan is also a very small country and a non-permanent member of the UN. So in case warfare were to start in Asia, what do you think will be the best action for small countries to take when the aggressors, the starters of wars are such big countries?
May I ask your name as well as your studying?
Sorry, my name is Kevin. I'm a third-year economics student in Keio University.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I often get similar question, or even I am thinking what is the most powerful tool for smaller countries? And I would say it's the rule of law. Nothing can be above it. So that means a UN Charter, it means international order. But it comes to the problem when not all countries or regimes are respecting it. That is why today, if we call on Security Council, keep up to your role, securing peace and stability in the world, and we see that this is actually not happening. Currently what is going on in Gaza and in the Middle East, and we don't manage for more than half a year to secure end of hostilities. This is a problem. But I think what we really have to do, build alliances around what is the rule of law, what is, above. So the way for diplomacy and the way to search political solutions and not military ones.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other question? We have plenty of time, maybe 20, 30 minutes more. So if you have a question, because you can raise a question in Japanese and I can translate it into English, if I may. Or we have today many ambassadors as well as embassy staff, as well as journalists, as well as students.
Students should say
Please.
something.
So, yeah, please.
Yes,
So,
yes.
could you use that microphone?
Hello, dear Minister. It's an honor to meet you. So, my name is Wan Young. I'm majoring in economics in Keio now. Actually, when Poland got attacked by Russian missiles, I don't think it was an accident, but NATO couldn't move into any actions. So, when I saw that news, I thought that NATO and the United Nations and other international societies are losing its power. So, still, do you think it is important to maintain the solidarity or the relationships between the near countries, or is it important to improve the country's self-defense, or is there any improvements that, as a foreign minister, you're trying to improve the strength of an international society that Slovenia's in it?
There is a permanent threat that some missile or something happens out of the territory of Ukraine, in the countries, in the neighboring countries or in the surrounding. And of course there is a strong awareness if one of the NATO alliance countries would in any case return, that would mean a war with Ukraine. And this no one wants. So we support Ukraine by all means, be it humanitarian, material, even militarily, Slovenia according its own capacity, but entering on a territory of Ukraine, it's never the question, in sense of that we would, one of the countries in the NATO alliance, be part of the war. That would mean start the war with Russia. And so far there is a strong awareness when it comes also to the discussion whether Ukraine can join NATO and when, because Ukraine is in the pipeline and Slovenia always speaks about open door policy, yes, but once the conditions are there. Country in war cannot basically join the alliance. You know, famous Article 5, if one country is under attack, all the other countries shall defend. So it is for that reason we try to make a lot of efforts to have a peace formula. Currently there are 7 peace formulas on the table. How to stop the war in Ukraine. Of course, there are Ukrainian conditions, and if you look that Ukrainians are fighting for their own territorial sovereignty and integrity, we do fully understand that, because no one with force can take your land away or internationally recognized borders. But once or where or when we will get to that situation is another question. Now 7 peace formulas are on the table. One is Zelensky peace formula, and currently there are negotiations. Swiss is running mediation that before the summer break we would have broader international community at the table to discuss further steps on all these initiatives for peace that are on the table. It's a very challenging exercise, and we are all aware if there is no major international support, and not even at the next stage Russia at the table, that peace formula or any peace formula will not succeed. So there are efforts, it's a lot of diplomacy behind, a lot of talks between the countries. Let's see how long we will still be facing this war in Ukraine.
Thank you for good questions and your good answers. So, any questions? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Koji from Nikkei newspaper. I'm a journalist. My question is about WPS, Women, Peace and Security Agenda. You mentioned, as you mentioned, that Slovenia and Japan are both non-permanent member of UN Security Council. And so in terms, with regard to WPS, do you think if both countries, Slovenia and Japan, can play complementary roles in discussion of this WPS in the international community? And if you think so, please let us know concretely what you should do.
Yes, I'm certain, because I already discussed about that topic with your former current foreign minister. As we are both ladies, we very quickly found also the touch and agreement on how to move on with the women, peace and security agenda, especially how to implement it. And I will give you the information that there is a Security Council Resolution 1325. This resolution did much more to recognize the vital contribution of women in peace and security. Together with succeeding resolutions, it set up a very strong normative framework for increase the participation of women and incorporate gender perspectives in all peace and security efforts of the United Nations. But the world has changed since then, and unfortunately not for better. Violent conflicts are ranging. I said how many we have around the globe, and the highest rate since the Second World War. So the number of women and girls living in conflict-affected regions has risen by a staggering 50% since 2017. And the current dire situation, as I mentioned, in the Middle East, will only further exacerbate these numbers. In all conflict situations, we call for full respect of international law. So one thing is to raise awareness of rights for women and girls, especially in conflict areas, empowerment of women and girls, also in all levels of a decision-making process. And also when it comes to negotiations for peace. We have a lot of skilled women, and they were, statistics prove, very good in negotiations for peace. But we are not using them to the extent we should. Some would even say when women are engaged talking in conflict situations or negotiations, or at least that there is higher percentage of women, there are better results. So you see equality or parity, at least engage women in a decision-making process on all levels, and also raise empowerment of women and girls. And just look to the General Assembly. I think among 78 presidents, if I'm not mistaken, in the history only 4 were women. So you have a lot of place for improvement in that regard. If you really want to make the world more just looking to the numbers that half of the population are women.
Thank you very much for the question. And so far we have not had a question from female students. If there is, it would be nicer. But of course, male student would be also welcome. Please.
Thank you for having such interesting session. My name is Shotaro. I'm undergraduate student of Keio University, and my major is political science. It is always said that there are few female politicians in Japan compared to other countries, and it's a it is always said that it's a Japanese problem. So if you were a Japanese women minister, how do you deal with these problems?
I have challenge already back at home, so even though we would usually say we are doing well in Slovenia, but I mentioned before that we are 3 ladies, first time ever in our history of the country in high positions. Still you could see under surface that not everything is that easy, a lot is on the paper, but for women to get on high positions, be it in policy or be it so in a political life or in a business life, seems to be still quite hard. Maybe for family reasons, maybe for the environment. Sometimes even feel as a woman, I was also till recently a party leader, so a coalition partner, and many years in politics, that there is maybe also with the social media, women face different comments. Women, there is, I would say, some sort of a chauvinism or sexism. Women are more exposed. Even though we sometimes feel like we are used, but it's not right. And we don't have so many women either on a hierarchical position, or I wouldn't say, also not in companies, in businesses. Now we are introducing certain quotas to improve, you know, the managing boards of the companies. Now, if what I try to do as a female minister, I first look to our ministry, what I can do better first at my house. That means that I wanted to put on all leading positions some sort of a parity. So, equal number of directors, women, men, which proved to be quite difficult, to be frank. Because I didn't manage it. Every time were more men than women for some reason. And if I look the education structure of our ministry, I realize we have highly educated women, diplomats, really. But outside, we have 2/3 of men ambassadors. So I ask, why is like that? It's also family reasons. So challenges quite often come that for women, if there are no proper conditions or it's a nasty environment, and if we as a society don't give same rights, you know, to accept in our mindset that women can equally be prosperous and can equally do, and maybe men do a bit more things at home. So it depends also about our traditions in the society. In our society, that is already changing quite a lot. I think today I see already quite some men that are those that are taking care at home for children, and women are instead of them doing their careers. It's not really a rule, it's more an exception, but you have a lot of, you know, examples, good and bad ones. Always encourage women that they are daring and that they are courageous to do so.
Well, thank you very much. And now, Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa is ranked as the second for the most favorite next Prime Minister of Japan. So maybe she can be, we now think that she can be the first Japanese female Prime Minister. So I want to have one. Oh yes, please.
Oh, there are lots of hands.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. I'm not sure I qualify for a question. I'm not a student and I'm not female, so but I'm a Danish ambassador. And I wanted to pose 2 questions to you. First of all, as you know, Denmark has been a great believer in European integration. You mentioned yourself how we need to look at Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine. But what about European integration in the Balkans? Is that also the 2030 deadline you see as a possibility there? And if we go down this road, how are we ever going to play a significant role in the world when we are still managing our own business internally in the EU? Second question is, Denmark is hoping to become members of the European Security Council from January. We are a candidate. And I wanted to ask a little bit about the dynamics between the non-permanent members of the Security Council and the permanent members. I mean, the Council is not so efficient because of the tension between the permanent members, but is there a room now for the non-permanent members? I know that the last resolution on Israel was actually supported by all 10 non-permanent members. How do you see that, and how do you see a small country doing a great job like Slovenia making a difference in the Council?
Thank you very much for both questions. On further enlargement, Western Balkans, I'd see even, it's difficult to say, but I wish to see it goes faster, because for the Western Balkans we speak 20 years about enlargement, and now we speak about Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia, and in the end are quite often political decisions. How we will manage our own business, I cannot see that everyone will be in next days or next year's part of the EU, but those that are ready. If I just look to Ukraine today, that is the biggest agriculture budget. If we put these numbers on the table, I think would tremendously change the European budget, and I think we are not there yet with the discussions how we will manage that. But on the Western Balkans, what I like to say is don't leave these countries behind, because what is happening there is growing nationalism and anti-European sentiment, because 20 years talking about the accession process and not getting any faster, people start losing hope, which is another risk, because Western Balkan became a playground for different geopolitical interests. So you have there, you know, from Russian influence, you have there Americans, you have Middle East, you have Turkey, so China, it's really, we speak about it, European countries. We have to do more. We have to do more for the Western Balkans, absolutely, because first we risk there another conflict. On dynamic in the Security Council, rightly you said, we start now working E10 much closer together, because that is the only platform where we can get a majority, knowing that among 5 permanent members there is Russia, that it's difficult, or there is, the world is divided in the Permanent Security Council. So E10, so 10 non-permanent members recently really did a great success. Slovenia was really working hard together also with other countries. Japan is there. We managed to adopt a resolution that first time since October 7 and Hamas attacks on Israel is calling for a ceasefire, release of hostages and humanitarian support to civilians. So E10 became now the only platform where it's worth to work together, because it can, and they are regularly meeting, because they can ensure that the Security Council still adopts some resolution. So it's maybe new dynamic and new reality.
Thank you, Ambassador. I saw many students were raising hands. 1, 2. So can I collect all these questions? So first, second, the third. Yes.
And the right hand to go on.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Foreign Minister. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the talk. As a German with Greek and Polish roots, it's really important for me that we have people in power who believe in the project of the European Union. So I'm really glad that you have this political view. My name is Niklas Kostelidis, and I study physics at the Technical University of Munich, and I'm an exchange student at Keio this semester. And I have 2 questions. First of all, excluding Russia's war on Ukraine, what would you say, as someone who has inside knowledge, what is the most crucial challenge for the EU right now? Maybe even one that the public might not be so aware of. And how optimistic are you that the EU will actually solve its problems and continue to be a success story? And my second question is a follow-up on your answer to the first question from Professor Hayashi, which would be that how risky do you think it is to expand the European Union in a quick manner, because it might be at risk of paralyzing itself, like what is happening with Hungary right now.
Could you pass your microphone to the student in front? Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Anna Sagawa, and I'm in the 3rd grade of political science. And I have one short question. It was interesting in the beginning. You said that you became journalist before, and I'm sorry if I missed something, but now we are at the age of deciding jobs, and I want to ask, why did you decide to become a journalist, and also why did you change your career to politician?
Thank you. I have a question from a female student. So please.
So thank you very much for your speech. Thank you for this opportunity, by the way. I'm international student from Italy, majoring in Asian studies. I'm from Trust, and I had a question about since recently there was this discussion about the treaties reform of the European Union, and I think it passed in the European Parliament, and it's the turn of the Council, I think. What's the like in the prospect of the deepening integration, not only enlarging integration of the European Union? This treaty reform could be like very impacting for the whole Union, and also, of course, of Slovenia. So, what's the position of your position, and of course the Slovenian position in the treaty reform, and in the prospect of what can spring from the treaty reform, which is probably a federalization of the EU and the creation of a European army, like compared to the membership to NATO. So yeah, this is.
You don't have easy questions. So you're quite knowledgeable. I will go with the first question on, yes, Russia war. What do I see as crucial challenge for Europe? When I was listening to you, two things came to my mind. One, what I feel now is that we are blamed of double standards. And quite often when I go out of Europe, or let's say out of western part of the world, I hear that we are in a way not listening well the other parts of the world and not reacting with same standards. Looking to the war in Ukraine and now looking to the situation in Gaza. So quite big part of the world, I could say West against the rest, it's this criticism that we are conducting double standards. This worries me, because if I look at today's pictures of the world, I think we should really embrace, but truly embrace fast, global South. Try to speak with our partners as Europeans on the African continent, because there we are also rapidly losing. And elsewhere in the world, because there are challenges all around and they are sooner or later affecting us. We shall not be too ego-European centric, but try to listen and understand what is happening around the world and speak with the same consistent, equal standards. This is what comes to my mind when I'm dealing with situations with wars, that sometimes we feel a bit isolated and criticized. Another is that I worry what is happening with cyber and hybrid attacks. That it's becoming a daily reality. We, since we are a member of Security Council, this is something that hits us basically every day to much greater extent than in the past. So we have more and more activities, and also with activities destabilization. So this is where we are under alert, and it's of course bringing certain destabilization in our political mindset. We have these attacks quite often. I don't know if I answered, but this came to my mind. So as long as this war in Ukraine will go on, more risks we have, or now the conflict in Middle East, one could be really worried where the world is heading right now. On your question, I like the question on journalism and how to decide on your professional life. If you'd ask me, I don't know, 40 years ago what I would do in my life, I would not have a proper answer. So that's what I want to say, that even from now on I don't have a proper answer. But sometimes, you know, I go where the flow goes. I'm always interested in finding something new. And when I became a journalist, okay, not to mention that my father was a journalist, so often you follow your parents, but I really enjoyed to work in Slovenian media. I was working at radio, at a newspaper, at TV, and then I very quickly became a foreign correspondent. And when I was 8 years foreign correspondent, I was extremely known in Slovenia, because I was every day reporting about EU institutions, NATO, and I was reporting last 4 years of the enlargement, so everybody knew me. And I was very attractive for politicians when there were European elections. They were all inviting me to get on the European list, because this is how the election campaign goes. So I was at some point challenged to go to European elections, and I accepted the invitation. And I decided, and I won, which in fact I sometimes said for me was a great experience to be a journalist before, because as a politician there is something in common. In both professions you have to know how to communicate, because as a journalist you have to know how to communicate, but as a politician, if you don't know how to communicate, you can have a fantastic idea, but you'll never manage to convince people to follow you. So the professions had something in common, and I don't regret it, even though I changed the side, but I stayed in European politics for quite many years. But who knows where I go after that. On Trieste and the treaty reform, quite difficult question. I'd say a reform is needed, but not necessarily for the next enlargement. There is place before we open the treaty, and opening the treaty would mean opening the Pandora box, especially when the situation is not very politically stable. So I would currently not dare to open the treaty, because I think we would open too many challenges and problems and never close it again. Even though we are aware that we have tremendously to change something to function better, but for the next enlargement, I think up to 10 new countries, we can even do it without changing the EU treaty. It would be a challenge, but with certain adaptations, and we are speaking about these adaptations, it could work.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks to many good questions, we could have a wonderful, lively discussion. But unfortunately, time is running out. So before ending, I'd like to ask you to join me to thanking for Minister for answering the many, many difficult questions. Thank you very much for Minister. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So let me